The SAR government said to be holding talks with CK Hutchison to seek a reasonable way out over the company's plan to sell 2 Panama Canal ports. Donald Trump places 25% tariffs on auto imports. And Trump says he may give China a reduction in tariffs to get the TikTok deal done. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Sources say the SAR government is holding talks with CK Hutchison to seek a reasonable way out after the company announced its controversial plan to sell its ports at the Panama Canal to a consortium led by U.S. investment firm BlackRock. Reports also noted that the central government had ordered state-owned enterprises to put all new joint projects with firms under Hong Kong tycoon Li Ka-shing on hold. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Several weeks have passed since local firm CK Hutchison Holdings' March 4th announcement that it plans to sell its 2 ports at the Panama Canal to a consortium led by American firm BlackRock. According to a South China Morning Post article, the Hong Kong government contacted CK Hutchison on that very day in a bid to find a reasonable way out. This as Hong Kong authorities stressed options are limited, owing to the high financial and political price that the local firm will have to pay by backing out of the deal, while continuing the deal could result in harming both the company and country. Chief Executive John Lee said earlier that the incident had garnered much of the community's attention and emphasized that all transactions must adhere to legal requirements. When asked about how the government will handle the situation prior to the opening ceremony of the Boao Forum for Asia, the CE stressed he had already addressed the matter earlier. Speaking about the Panama Canal deal at the forum, former Chinese ambassador to the United States, Zhou Wenzhong, said all commercial transactions must also take the nation's interest into account. A sentiment that was echoed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun asserted that China opposes all forms of economic coercion and bullying tactics, noting that Beijing is against the use of such force to harm the interests of other nations. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Vice Premier Ding Xuexiang urged Asian countries to strengthen cooperation in his speech at the opening ceremony of the Boao Forum for Asia annual conference. Ding added China will continue to open its doors wider to the outside world and share opportunities with other countries. Ding said currently the world faces significant global instability and uncertainties. With that, he said all countries should work together, and he put forward 4 suggestions, including enhancing trust, strengthening solidarity and cooperation with mutual benefit and win-win resolution. Ding added that China's economic rebound is consolidating and China will expand domestic demand on all fronts, promote the development of new productive forces, the private economy, and continue to expand its opening up. Chief Executive John Lee met with Chu Dongyu, the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, on the sidelines of the Boao Forum for the Asia Annual Conference in Hainan Province. Lee said he introduced Chu Dongyu to how Hong Kong's agriculture and fisheries and food industry could work to develop the city into a hub for food processing and international food trade. He said he intends to work with the UN Food and Agriculture Organization to extend Hong Kong's experience in using the water quality modeling system to estimate the carrying capacity of fish farms to Southeast Asia and beyond. U.S. automakers and their global rivals were rocked on Wednesday after President Donald Trump's announcement that he would impose 25% tariffs on all vehicles and foreign-made auto parts imported into the United States. Asian auto stocks fell on Thursday in reaction to the news expanding a global trade war and prompting criticism and threats of retaliation from affected U.S. allies. Tracy Furness has more.
The new levies on cars and light trucks will take effect on April 3rd, the day after Trump plans to announce reciprocal tariffs aimed at the countries responsible for the bulk of the U.S. trade deficit. The move will put a financial squeeze on automakers that depend on global supply chains, but will raise billions in revenue annually for the government.
I think ultimately we could probably anywhere from $600 billion to $1 trillion will be taken in over the relatively short-term period, meaning a year from now. This is very exciting to me. This is the automobile industry, and this will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen. Before I was elected, we were losing all of our plants. They were being built in Mexico and Canada and other places. Now those plants largely have stopped, and they're moving them to our country.
Shares in General Motors fell roughly 3% on the news Wednesday. Ford's stock was up slightly. Shares in Stellantis, the owner of Jeep and Chrysler, dropped nearly 3.6%. The uncertainty associated with the auto import tariffs could be disruptive to the industry, according to a Michigan-based expert.
What we're concerned about is the average transaction price of a vehicle is already at around $49,000, near an all-time high. So incremental or even major shifts in that pricing is going to affect demand, and that's a concern of us because that has a backward push on the supply chain with regards to production cuts and maybe employment cuts.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen described Trump's tariffs as bad for businesses, worse for consumers, while Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney labelled the tariffs a direct attack on Canadian workers and retaliatory measures were being considered. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. immigration authorities have detained and revoked the visa of a Turkish doctoral student at Tufts University near Boston. The student had voiced support for Palestinians in Israel's war in Gaza. 30-year-old Renese Ozturk had just left her home to meet with friends Tuesday night when she was detained by U.S. Department of Homeland Security agents, according to her lawyer. Surveillance video appears to show 6 people, their faces covered, taking away Ozturk's phone as she yelled and was handcuffed. Where the police, members of the group were heard saying, "Why are you hiding your faces?" Another man was heard saying. Tufts University said it had no pre-knowledge of the incident and did not share any information with federal authorities prior to the event. Ozturk is a doctoral student in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. And still ahead, and locally, the winter flu season is coming to an end. Welcome back. As TikTok's sale or ban deadline nears in the U.S., President Donald Trump has suggested he may give China a reduction in tariffs to help facilitate a deal on TikTok, which involves a short video app selling its U.S. operations. It came after Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng voiced grave concerns over Washington's trade policies, including tariffs and investigations during a video talk with a U.S. trade chief. Danny Zhou has the story.
U.S. legislators on Capitol Hill passed a law last year requiring TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance to divest most of its stake or risk a ban in the U.S. on national security grounds. After an abrupt shutdown in January, the popular short video app was back online based on an executive order by U.S. President Donald Trump. ByteDance still faces an April the 5th deadline to find a non-Chinese buyer for TikTok. With less than 2 weeks to go before the hammer falls, Trump said he may consider further extending the deadline if needed.
We're going to have a form of a deal, but if it's not finished, it's not a big deal. We'll just extend it. So we'll see whether or not we have a deal. We have a lot of interest in TikTok.
Is there a way for a U.S. company to operate it and ByteDance to still have a share of the algorithm?
Well, there are numerous ways you can buy TikTok, and we will find the one that's best for the country, for our country.
Trump floated the idea of cutting tariffs in exchange for Beijing's approval to get the deal done.
And China is going to have to play a role in that, possibly, in the form of an approval, maybe. Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
The White House is set to be deeply involved in the high-profile deal talks. This is not the first time that Trump tries to use tariffs as a bargaining chip in the sale of TikTok's U.S. business that's worth tens of billions of dollars. Early on Wednesday, Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng held a video call with U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer on economic issues at the request of the U.S. side. The Vice Premier expressed solemn concerns over additional tariffs slapped by the U.S. under the pretext of fentanyl, the Section 301 investigation targeting Chinese imports, as well as the reciprocal duties scheduled to take effect next week. He urged Washington to return to the track of dialogue on an equal footing. Greer said candid conversations are critical for boosting mutual understanding and helping resolve emerging issues. Both sides confirmed that stable China-US economic and trade relations are in the interests of both countries and agreed to maintain communication. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
The winter flu season has come to an end. The Center for Health Protection said the numbers of severe cases in adults and children are 20% and 60% lower than the pre-pandemic tallies, respectively, thanks to vaccination campaigns. This year's winter flu season lasted 11 weeks, notably shorter than last year's nearly 30-week streak. The Center for Health Protection said the tally of severe cases was also lower than pre-pandemic levels, specifically the peak seen during the winter of 2018-19. In total, the city reported 488 serious adult cases, marking a 20% decline. Among them, 330 flu patients died, and 66% of the fatalities were unvaccinated. 10 serious cases involved children, 60% fewer than before the pandemic with no fatalities. 7 of them were not inoculated. The Center for Health Protection said the improvement in caseloads was thanks to a higher flu vaccination rate. Since late September last year, 2.07 million doses of flu vaccine have been administered. That's over 10% more than the previous quarter, marking a record high. Authorities said the public should not let their guard down with the coming summer influenza. The government is preparing a seasonal flu vaccination drive for year 2025-26. All schools participating in the outreach vaccination program, including kindergartens, childcare centers, primary and secondary schools, can also opt for the flu nasal spray or have a hybrid mode of inoculation. Authorities added the vaccination rates of children under the age of 2 and people aged 50 to 60 remain low. So the government will step up its publicity campaign to encourage more people to get vaccinated. The Center for Health Protection, or CHP, recorded 135 cases related to norovirus for the first 3 months this year, with over 1,000 people infected. Those infected included 5 mainland study tour groups, 2 of which involved human-to-human transmission. CHP expects a downward trend of transmission in the summer. Recently, some teachers and students who visited the mainland developed symptoms such as gastroenteritis on returning to the city. 1/3 of the norovirus cases occurred in schools. Edwin Choi, controller of CHP, said the norovirus can be easily transmitted within a confined space, such as on buses or at schools. He also said Taiwan and Japan remain at the peak of norovirus outbreaks. Members of the public are advised to wash their hands thoroughly. The police are searching for an Indonesian foreign domestic helper suspected of abusing an 81-year-old woman. The incident took place at Lion Estate in Shamshui-po, where the 81-year-old woman employed the Indonesian maid in January this year. The elderly woman's 55-year-old daughter found last Monday that her mother had sustained injuries to the lips and hands. After checking the unit's closed-circuit TV recording, the daughter alerted the police after seeing footage of her mother's maid appearing to tie up her employer's hands and physically assaulting her. The elderly woman was sent to Caritas Medical Center for treatment. Authorities have listed the case as assault occasioning actual bodily harm. A reminder, this year's Hong Kong Sevens will kick off at the Kai Tak Sports Park tomorrow, and TVB Pearl will have live broadcasts of the 3-day rugby extravaganza. News at 7:30 tomorrow will be delayed until around 9 p.m. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.